Hey everyone, welcome to or welcome back to Noras Cove. If you're new here, I'm Yoshida, and here at the Cove we like to budget and plan in confidence using a planner. Today we're going to be talking about how to get a correct budget closeout. So I just did a budget closeout video a few days ago, and someone asked me, I think they were kind of confused on how to get a budget closeout. I'll just try to insert the question here. And I'm just going to show you my method. So this was like February. This is March. We didn't do one for the month of January. The best way, in my opinion, to do a correct budget closeout, and we'll do a mock one together, is you have to keep track of your income for the month. That means all 4 or 5 weeks. Secondly, you need to keep track of all of your bills that you're paying consistently for the 4 to 5 weeks and have a total at the end of each week so that you know what bills you've paid and how much you're paying. Savings, same way. Whatever bills that you're paying, whatever sinking funds, I have a sinking funds here, which I'm going to eventually be using, but cash envelopes, which in my case are my categories, your debt payoff, your expenses for each week consistently. This is how you're going to get a proper budget closeout at the end of the month. And we typically do a budget closeout at the end of the month. And we're taking all of those 4 weeks. So from the first week of the month to the last week of the month. And we're tracking it weekly. That is why it's so important to do a paycheck budget so that you know what you're paying, where you went over at, where you may have come under at, and also track your spending, especially if you are new to budgeting. I just personally think when you're first starting to budget that you need to track your spending. I've been budgeting off and on for years, but the best thing that works for me is tracking my spending because of the way that I get paid. It's like a free-for-all sometimes. I'm thinking if I'm not tracking my spending, I'm just like, woo, I got $500 a day. I can go out here and just buy this, that. No, I personally have to track my money. So I would highly recommend tracking your expenses, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. And I track my expenses in my everyday carry, which is my CP Petite. Color coding is great so that you know what categories you're going over in, or you may be coming under in, and how to kind of switch things up the following month. But tracking your spending also lets you know where most of your money is going as well, so that when you are doing your budget closeout, you have the correct numbers. So again, tracking your income for the month on a consistent weekly basis, your bills, your savings, your cash envelopes, your debt payoff, your expenses, sinking funds, and then at the end of the month, you will calculate all of that. So let's just do a little mock one really quickly, and I'll go over it slowly, but no worries, I'll be doing one from here on out. So you don't have to worry, we'll always be doing a budget closeout. I just didn't do one for the month of January because I was just getting started. So I didn't have, I wasn't tracking my income, my bills, and all that stuff the first week of January. I started the second, maybe third week. And so that's why there's not one for January. Okay, so we're going to do a mock one. So let's say this is the month of April. Let's just, no, let me make it a month that's already gone by. Let's just say January. Okay, so the first week in January, I thought I would make a total of $2,000. I ended up, let me see if I can get the zoom on here, y'all. I don't want to touch this camera because I got it working. I don't want to touch nothing, so we're going to figure it out. So I budgeted $2,000, but I actually made $2,200. Okay, second week. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and these are just weeks. Okay, and then some months there may be a 5th week. Let's just say there's a 5th week in this particular month of January, just hypothetically. And then so the second week I budgeted $2,000 again, but I only made $1,700. Let me put up here mock so that I know not to be thinking I made this. Okay, and then on the third week we said, well, in my case, I would say, Dad, I only made $1,700 last week. So let me bring this down from $2,000 to about $1,800. But if you know what you're getting every week, you would just do this because you based on your income and you know what you're getting paid. So $1,800, and then I actually came in at $1,850. And then we're back to the $2,000, and then I did make $2,000. Next week, $2,000, and then we have $2,000. So at the end of the month, we'll come in and calculate all of this, the actual amount. That's $9,750. I'm not gonna lie, this is looking like some money I used to make. Okay, so for bills, each week you're gonna come in here and you're gonna put all the bills you paid for the week. And I'm gonna go down here and just put week 3, week 1, 2, 3, 4, and week 5. So in this mock budget, there's 5 weeks in a month, okay? And that's why on this particular budget closeout sheet, I have 5 weeks, because there's some weeks that there are 5 weeks. So if I was doing this, and each week I would come and look at my paycheck budget and see how much I was paying in bills each week after that week ended. So let's say this week is done. This is the first week of January, hypothetically. I might have, no, January is in my old one. So let's just say this is the first week of January. I come in, this is what I spent on bills. I spent $345.88. So let's just say that first week, I'm just gonna put actual $345.88. And some people like to round off their change just to make it even. And I'm really considering that because I always have like $1 or $2 left, and I think it's just change. Okay, so let's just say you go to your paycheck budget, because you should be using a paycheck budget once you get your paycheck to map out your bills, what you have to pay, any extra, any debt, and any savings. You should be using a paycheck budget. That's what's going to help you successfully fill out a budget closeout. Not even the monthly, because you can guesstimate. Your monthly is just a kind of a foresee of what you're planning to pay for the month. You don't know that until at the end of the month what got paid, because sometimes things come up extra and that will end up on your paycheck budget. So I would recommend, definitely, if you don't do a monthly budget, if you just do a monthly budget, do it on a calendar. But I do both monthly budget and a monthly calendar budget, but paycheck budget is what works for me. Paycheck budget, because the way I get paid, I pay things on a weekly basis because of the way that I get paid. But I just highly recommend that, whether you're getting a paycheck or not. That's why it's just called paycheck budget, because when you get that paycheck, you need to budget it out so you know what's going to happen when it's time to close out your budget. So let's say we flip into the second week. In the second week, I spent $1,800 in bills, $19.25, and this week I did. All right, let's just say the next week I spent $521.45, and then on the fourth week I spent $494, and I'm not going to add any change. And then on the fifth week I spent $1,019. I'm not going to add the cents on there. Okay, so there we are. So let's get a total. So in bills we spent now I gotta do this math. Let me just start over. 345, 88. So for the month of quote-unquote January, in bills we spent $4,199.58. Okay? And then let's go into savings. So just hypothetically, we're going over here where it says date. I just put numbers for week 1 through 5. So let's say we deposited On the first week, we deposited $500. I hope this stuff adds up, but it should with a budget of $9,000. So let's say we deposited $500. We didn't take any out, so our new balance is $500. Okay, and then on the second week, we just deposited $200 into our high yield savings account, and I didn't withdraw anything, so now my new balance should be $700. Let me break that down. So this is week by week. So you deposited $500 in your savings on that first week of January. You didn't withdraw any money, so you have a balance of $500 because you're just getting back to savings. So that's why it's that. And then on week 2, you deposited $200. You didn't take anything out, and now you have a total of $700. So let's just say on week 3, you decided to take a little bit of money out, and you took out $100. So now your balance should be $600. And then on the 4th week, you put that back plus some, so you put $250 in there. You didn't withdraw anything. Now you have a total of $850. And then on week 5, you just only put $100. You didn't withdraw anything, so now you have a total of $950. So this should be your total right here. Should be $950, because over here, these are all the deposits: 5, 7, 9, 50, and 100. But you withdraw 100, so that puts you back at $950. So $950 should be your total. Okay, cash envelopes. I use cash. I do the envelope method a little different than a lot of people. I'm kind of doing mine digitally, but I'm going to go back to cash. But if you were doing cash or digital, this could be cash or digital envelopes, whether you're doing it through your bank account, however, an app, or however you're doing it, or you're doing it in cash. This would be that section right here, your cash envelopes. So let's say I already have week 1 through 5 here. So let's just go to the actual. We're going to skip over the budgeted, but what you had planned in your paycheck budget, that's what you would write down each week here. But I'm just skipping over that so that we can just get to the meat and potatoes of it. And so let's say week 1, and all of your envelopes combined, you had an actual of $500. Second week, you do this pretty much every week, so you kind of know what yours is going to be. When you have a paycheck, it's easier to say what your cash envelopes are going to be or your envelopes are going to be. And if you may not even have this section, so you can always scrape it out. So the next week was 7. Next week was 5. Next week is 5. And the last week is 3. So let's get a total. I'm trying to stay mindful because I know that I done created a faux budget here. So you have $2,500 that you spent in envelopes. I'm just gonna double check this. Yep. So you have $2,500 that you spent in envelopes. Okay, now to go to debt payoff. Like me, I'm only paying off debt. I was just trying to catch up before I paid off debt. So we're going to kind of implement that here into this faux budget. So your debt payment comes out at the end of the month, like mine. And so you don't have any of these, but that one payment on the last week of the month. And it's $150. So that's your total. Okay, and then now down to expenses. And expenses, I said I was going to do a whole series on how to create a budget without all the fancy things, but expenses are things like that come up that you are not prepared for, or they're variable expenses such as gas. Let's say you had to pay a repairman for your stove or what have you. I like to use it for gas, or just kind of like oil changes and things kind of that goes with my car that just kind of unexpected that I had no intentions on paying. And let's just say you got gas 2 times out of the month, every 2 weeks. And the first time you spent $80, that would be me. The next week you didn't spend anything, and then the next week you spent $80, and then you were about to run out because you went a little further than you normally do, so you spent $60 on the 4th week, and then 0 on the last week. So let's see what your total is here. Well, that's 160 plus 60 is 220. Okay, and now your sinking funds. Again, I was going to do a whole video on how to create a budget, but if you don't know what sinking funds are things that you plan for the future. So let's say in my case, I'm going on a girls trip and I might need some spending money, and so I would be saving up for that. Some people save it in cash envelopes, some people save them through high yield savings account, however you want to do it. Like I have a car maintenance account. I don't have a $5 in there, but I need to save for that. You know, just certain things that you need to save for: your car breaking down, home repairs, all that great stuff. That's what sinking funds are. And so let's just say in your first week of sinking funds of combined, all of your sinking funds combined, not just the car maintenance, not just the home repairs, not just you want some new windows or a new purse. Also, that's another one of mine, luxury things, luxury items. Those could be sinking funds. It's just a combination of all of those things. And that first week, you put away $200. The second week, you put away $150. The third week, you just only did $100. Fourth week, another $100, and then on the last week, that was your magic check, as they like to call it. You put $300. So let's calculate that. Let's see. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 850. Make sure 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 850. Yeah. So you got 850 there, and then now it's time to do the summary. Now each week you can use this budgeted section, but I'm just skipping over that because it is self-explanatory. So let's do the budget. Let's do the math. So also, let me say this. Going back to the paycheck budget, all of this stuff should match up with your paycheck budget. I've said that before, but I'll say it again. Each thing should match up with your paycheck budget. If you've been doing your budget correctly and you've been doing your paycheck budget correctly, everything on here should match up, and what you have left over in your bank should be what's remaining here. Whatever you have left over in your bank account or cash on you, that's what this should be. It should be even out to. So I'm going to do the math, and we're just going to get the number. We're going to say that's what's in the bank account, but let's try to get a little close. So let's do the math. So you start off with your $9,750 paycheck, or paychecks, and then now you're going to subtract your bills. So you had $4,199.58 in bills. That leaves you with $5,550. So then you have your $950 savings. You save $950, so you subtract that. Then you're going to subtract your $2,500 in your cash envelopes, your $150 in debt, your $220 in expenses, your $850 in sinking funds, and you have $880.42 left. So that's what should be in your bank account, or in your cash, in your purse, or however you keep your whatever's left over in your bank account or your wallet. So, and then that's what the summary section is. That helps you to get to this number here. So for income, we had budgeted, let's say 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 9,800. We had budgeted 9,800, but we end up making 9,750. And your bills, you'll pull this number from here to put it over here. And let's just go ahead. We're not going to add the budgeted part, okay? So we're going to add $41.99.58. Then our savings, which is here, $950. And then our cash envelopes, debt payoff, $150. Sinking funds and cash envelopes, these two right here. So we got to do a little math on that one. $2,500. And sinking funds, $850. So that's 33. I don't know why there's like this on here. $33.50. Okay, and then next you have expenses, which is right here, which is $220. And then the $880 should be your remaining balance. But let's just go over it to make sure that the math is mathing and that you didn't make any mistakes. So you have $97.50 minus $41.99.58 minus 950 minus 150 minus 3350 minus, oh goodness, I gotta start over, sorry. 9750 minus 4199, 58 minus 950 minus 150 minus, where is it? 33, oh, 3350 minus 220. So there's an 880.42. Now that we have closed out our budget, this matches what is supposed to be in our bank account. You can take this amount, you can say, hey, I want to add it to a high yield savings account, or we call it rollover, and it rolls over to the next month, and it continues into the next month to help you pay some more bills. And then maybe the following month you may want to use this for a vacation, or put back into your sinking funds and all of that. But I like to do, normally if I have rollover at the end of my budget closeout, it is definitely for the next week's bills. So this could be for your upcoming bills. So don't go thinking this is free money. It's not. But this is just a mock budget. But like I said, I think when I did my budget closeout, let me find it, I had $183 or something like that left over, and I knew that was for my upcoming bills. So it was not free. Okay, it was not to be playing with. Let me see if I can find it. It should be. Yeah, so here was my March, and it said I had $985.15. That's correct. $985.15. Now I gotta go back and look at the video, because I was like, oh no, that wasn't correct. It was like 183, something like that. It's on here. Yeah, it was 183.94. So with that being said, because we used a different amount, don't pay mine no attention, but that's how you use a budget closeout. So when you get this number here and you go to plan your monthly budget for the next month, you know that your rollover would be that $880. But again, it's not free money. It's probably for some upcoming bills. Or if it is, you can use it however you want to use it. And then that helps you kind of plan your next month. A budget closeout kind of helps you plan your next month, let you see where you were over at in some categories, like your income. If your income is going to stay the same, fine. But like your bills, you may have a subscription and you were a little over. I'm like, you know what, I may need to get rid of this subscription. I'm not using it, and I could bring down my bill category. Savings, I would suggest putting as much as you can, as long as you can. But I also would suggest a cash savings as well. The way the world is going, I would definitely suggest having a cash savings, some type of cash on hand. Okay, and then your cash envelopes, those are the things that you just use for every week, like your groceries. Sometimes gas is included in here, your beauty or your maintenance and all those things like that. That's what cash envelopes usually is for. Things you know you're going to need every week. A miscellaneous envelope. All that great stuff, that's what cash envelopes are for. You can cut something back. You may say, you know what, I'm not getting my nails done anymore, but I'm going to continue to get my lashes and a pedicure. So I'm saving $100 by not getting my nails done. So you can bring down a category on your cash envelopes. But that's what a budget closeout does, pretty much, just to let you see where you're kind of spending most of your money, how your paycheck is allocated, or how your bills match up to your paycheck, or how you get paid, and it gives you just a bird's eye view of all the things you have going on in your budget. But you should always close out your budget so that way everything matches up, because you could have lost some money, somebody could have taken some money out of your account, but everything should match up. I just believe in closing out the budget just to keep me on track with what I'm trying, in the direction I'm trying to go as far as my budget. I have always been a pen and paper girl. I have always kind of wrote down what I made. I do Slack, okay? I'm not perfect. I have Slack. But since being in the planner community and creating inserts, not only for myself, but for others, my inserts are really for a lot of self-employed people. People don't know that because I'm self-employed. So I make them so that they're for me, but they're also for those with paycheck, so that, of course, I could sell some. But I've always been passionate about my numbers you know, especially in the type of industry that I'm in. What am I making? Where am I spending it at? But once I got in the community and I realized about like a budget closeout and how to properly do a budget besides writing it down and just on a notepad and all that great stuff, I'm hooked, okay? Like I said, now I take time off every now and then, but let me tell you something. When I'm not budgeting, when I'm not closing out my budget, my finances are a mess. Hence why y'all didn't see me last year. My finances are a mess, okay? I be out here willy-nilly and just spending money left and right, and then I be like, dang, somebody done robbed me, and it be me, okay? But that's how you do a proper budget closeout. I hope that it was helpful. If you have any more comments, or any questions, excuse me, if you have any more questions, I would love to answer them for you in the comments section. And thank you for asking the question. I'm always willing to help, and especially my fellow hairstylists, nail techs, beauty professionals. I'm always here to help and help us figure out how to manage this inconsistent income. So if you enjoyed today's video, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Also hit that notification bell, come back for more, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.